We provide frontline services every single day. I'm looking forward to talking about the emergencies related to our water infrastructure in particular. And towns are committed to transparency and fiscal responsibility, but unfortunately, in delivering those frontline services, are facing rising costs, workforce shortages, and some outdated procurement rules. We are here today asking for modernization, not less oversight, so towns can operate more efficiently and deliver these essential services even faster. What we're going to say here today is pretty much what you've already heard from the other folks giving their testimony, but I want to focus high level on 5 areas. The first is competitive bidding thresholds. You've heard this already today and you know this, but current levels are $20,000 for purchases and $35,000 for public works programs. Last raise in 2009. Since then, we've experienced about 36% inflation. So that $35,000 in 2009 today is over $50,000. So what that means to our towns is in routine work in water, highway, and IT, that now triggers full bidding for just routine everyday work, which adds to cost and delay of our members. What we're asking is to raise that threshold to reflect today's costs and index it to inflation or review every 5 years. Critically important that that is indexed to inflation. Keeping safeguards already in place, no splitting purchases, maintaining best value, and piggyback options are critical. Second area I want to talk about is modernization of notice requirements. This has come up already. This is a top priority of the association. This law still requires printed newspaper publications, and many newspapers are digital only now. We know that they're dropping in their readership pretty rapidly. And we understand that towns are already using a .gov website and mandate for budgets and other notices. Towns spend, this is critically important, towns spend between $6.3 and $8.5 million annually on public notices. If we are serious about lowering the cost of local government, public notices is one of the easiest and biggest impacts to deal with in helping lower the cost of government. We know that more residents are going to websites that the towns run to get information. We know that we are pushing them there. This law that was just passed by you and signed by the governor does just that. We also know that by requiring people to buy a newspaper, we are actually making it more difficult. We're actually making our residents purchase something to get something they could already get from us free. This is a critically important modernization opportunity for this legislature. The third area I want to talk about, and it's been addressed, is piggybacking. Obviously, this allows towns to use other governments' competitive bid if, and these are critical points, if the contract was let by a U.S. or state entity, so another public entity, made available to other governments, which is required, and awarded to the lowest bidder or best value. This obviously expires on June 30th of 2026, and we believe should be extended and made permanent. Best value authority also expires in 2028 and also should be made permanent. This is an important point for our local governments. As a supervisor, I was a supervisor of a town for 15 years. We ran into this issue more often than not when we had to provide for the lowest, or we accepted the lowest bid. Oftentimes drove costs higher because it wasn't done properly and we had to go back and redo it within a year, 2 or 3 years. This is an important point for us as well. We believe these tools save time, money, and will preserve competition. Piggybacking for public works is the fourth area I want to talk about. As Barb brought up, a recent court case involving a school district said piggybacking doesn't apply to public work projects. We believe that was a very narrow focus as well. We believe this forces towns to rebid infrastructure work, and that drives up costs and reduces efficiencies. We believe the general municipal law already authorizes piggybacking on public works. However, we support clarifying language to explicitly allow piggybacking for public works projects to avoid further confusion in the future. Fifth area I want to bring up is multi-award cooperative contracts. Comptroller guidance currently says municipalities may only piggyback off contracts where only one award was granted. As was discussed here earlier, multi-award contracts named several pre-qualified vendors at a set price. State agencies like OGS use multiple award contractors regularly. Towns, as well as other municipalities, should and ought be able to do the same. If it works for the state, why would it not work for a town? We do ask to clarify or codify authority for towns to use multi-award contract consistent with Section 103. So today I'm here to speak on behalf of our members to seek clarity, consistency, flexibility, not less oversight. We ask to extend the expiring procurement tools, clarify piggybacking for public works, update thresholds and notice rules. These updates will reduce red tape, protect taxpayer dollars, and help deliver essential services that our towns provide every day in an efficient manner. I want to thank you for your continued partnership with local governments. We're looking forward to engaging on this topic through the legislative session.
Thank you for your testimony. I just have a few brief questions related to your town supervisor for 15 years.
Yes.
What town?
Town of Glenville, Schenectady County, 30,000 residents.
30,000 residents. And public notice requirement for anything above $20,000.
I'm sorry?
For commodity purchasing is above $20,000.
Yes.
Required public notice. Do you know on average when you were a town supervisor how much that cost your town on a yearly basis?
I don't have the exact cost that it cost our town. I know it was cost prohibitive. It happened very often because for $20,000, as was talked about earlier, that really isn't a lot of money today.
Sure.
If you want, I mean, if you're asking specifically to commodities, I don't have that number. But I know it's a six-figure number to the town of Glenville, or to a town probably the size of 30,000 people or so.
It's 6 figures. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And if I just could add on that too, real quick, it also extends the time very often, maybe not related to the commodities, but it does extend how long you have to provide notices, because it takes days sometimes to get into the newspaper, where you could put a notice on your website like that.
Yeah, of course. The world's changing. We're dealing with this with forming now. Let's see, right? You're required to go through all these hoops and publish it. And the pushback is always, well, we need local papers, we need local journalism, people with these funds. Then they're done. I think it's just a decision you have to make. Certainly, it feels arbitrary at this point. It's not for the stated purpose of public notice, it's for something else.
Correct. I mean, I think that we do need newspapers, but I don't think taxpayers should subsidize it. I don't think it should be the town having to pay for it. Look at the job market, right? It's already abandoned newspapers. They're on websites because that's what works. That's what's efficient. That's what's more cost effective. So, you know, there was a time when people said we needed horse and buggies, but we don't subsidize that. We move on.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for being here. Just like the previous speaker, and it doesn't restrict you is to do piggybacking of other larger towns or cities like New York City, so it can lower your cost at that. So there's no restriction. Is that correct?
On piggybacking,
Yes,
my understanding.
Okay, so it's no. So what legislation or policy do you like us to do to address the issue besides indexing inflation, which I believe in that?
Yeah.
$20,000 isn't a whole lot of money.
No.
Really nothing.
Especially when you're referring to purchases within the Public Works Department, for example. You know, very often you have within, say, your water infrastructure system, and we talked about emergencies earlier with the earlier panel. That's why we are pushing the swap program so much, is to make proactive purchases that are controlled into water infrastructure that is aging. But when we have a water main break that normally would cost maybe $10,000, if you were to do that proactively, costs $30,000 to $40,000 after it breaks, and you have to do it as an emergency. So that's one way you can cut emergencies down, is by making sure we're proactively investing, and the state is making those investments through the SWAP Act, which is a sewer water infrastructure program we're asking for.
Well, thank you. This is very commodity. So I'm thinking ahead is I like to support our local industry, especially New York and taxpayer in New York State, pay, and I can make sure that we support our local industry. Do you have any priorities based on the contract need to support local produced goods, or would you favor that first if it's all if the price comes out competitively the same price? You need special favor to support local.
Yeah, absolutely support local purchase where you can. Obviously, federal, U.S. and state products are probably best if it's all everything being equal. We would certainly support something like that. I mean, many towns have their own procurement policy as well, which goes beyond what the state provides, and so there's opportunity there, and we work with them on producing their own procurement policy. When I was supervisor, I had to follow a more stringent procurement policy that the town board adopted, which was above and beyond what the state provided for. So we can work with our members in trying to achieve some of these goals, but we believe wholly that these are areas that are within the purview of the local government. It should be left with the purview of the local government, and we can work with them and encourage them. But as was talked about earlier, there's so much diversity among the state. What's good for Hempstead, it's not necessarily good for the town of Day or the town of Glenville or any other. And so we would like to see that left on the local level.
Thank you very much. I yield my time out, Chair.
No, thank you. Good morning. Thank you for being here and again for what you do.
Thank you.
My district has 4 towns, and you guys actually a certified local official. I like the program, and I like what you all are doing to get elected officials involved in things like procurement. This is really something that the public, knows about, but you do a good job. Would you talk a little bit about the multi-work contracts asks for the counties on the town level? Why would you push for multi-work?
Well, we believe it allows for choice, right? And so when we talk about things like making the decision what's best for the local community in that area, in that region, it gives more opportunity for people to have choice on what is the best approach, the best vendor. We believe it just promotes efficiency. And we believe that will lower costs in the end, because it is making sure that there's competition still. One of the things you talked about earlier, and I don't want to go back to old questions, but why are public works programs or purchasing so much more expensive? All you have to do is beat the person you think you have to beat. You don't have to come in with you don't have to come in with your cost plus a little extra. All you have to know is that these people, I got to beat these people, and I think that raises the bar, because everybody is trying to make money on local government, because they know all they have to do is just squeak out over someone else. But if you have multiple, now you have a little more competition, a little more pressure on people to make sure that they have to give us their best price.
So is that somewhere in some research, empirical research, that the booths that are purchased by the town or whatever town in the state of New York are more expensive than booths that are purchased by on the market? In other words, did anyone ever actually study that? I know that seems to be the prevailing belief, but I'd be interested to know if the Association of Towns actually studied the price of commodities in comparison. Are we paying more for salt than what we get on the shelves of hardware stores?
Yeah, I can't say that we actually have studied that yet, and that's something maybe we can look at. I think it's just based on many years of experience, knowing that folks can figure out the cost of things in certain areas of the state and play to that. I mean, it's a business decision, right? It's almost on its face what's going to happen. You're going to say, "Oh, Long Island, things are very expensive. We just got to squeak in there." But out in, up in the Adirondacks, things may not be as expensive, and so your bidding can be adjusted to that region.
Right, and what you described is also in the private market as well, different areas pay different prices for a variety of issues. One of the things that the towns are purchasing are granularly activated carbon in filters, the pellets that we charge many times out. But I'm interested in, if there's a cooperative movement among the towns for some of those high price items like that.
I think towns would very much like to work together on that. I think one of the things we're saying is there may not be clarity for towns in the law currently, and I think some of the things we asked for will help bring that. And I think we'll encourage that intergovernmental cooperation. There's a lot going on, a lot of services that are served actually between counties and towns and villages, as villages are parts of towns. There's a lot of cooperation going on, and I think if we can bring more clarity, we bring more encouragement to that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. There is one thing, if you allow me just a moment. There is a commodity that isn't being discussed today, and I think I would just like to put it on everyone's radar, and it's called health insurance. Because that is the thing that is absolutely destroying towns' budgets right now, and we're not allowed to bid on it. We're not allowed to go out RFP on it. We are stuck. And one of the issues that we have to look at, we believe, is that if you have less than 100 employees, you're not allowed to get out of community rate. Community rate is killing towns. And so we're trying to put a cooperative together statewide, do a purchasing cooperative, but we can only capture towns that have 100 employees or more to build this cooperative. Unfortunately, what that means is that's about 20% of the towns in the state of New York. 700 towns have fewer than 100 employees. They're left behind. They're stuck with the highest insurance premiums in the state because we can't capture them in a co-op. And I would respectively ask that if we can put this into the conversation, I think this would be the single biggest saver of local government costs going forward.
I appreciate that. I know that's a good discussion being had by many, and even talking about collaboratives amongst different towns when it comes to health insurance. So definitely offline we can have conversations around that.
Thank you. Thank you very much.